Okay, let's jump right in and completely reframe how we look at mental health. Because, way too often society just brushes off serious conditions as weird personality quirks, or worse, a lack of willpower. But what if we looked at them completely differently? What if we viewed these conditions as mechanical misfires in the brain's highly advanced systems? By actually understanding the pure mechanics of these disorders, we can finally replace all that judgment with genuine mechanical empathy.
So think about this. What actually happens when your brain's survival signals just refuse to turn off? It's a pretty provocative question, right? Look, our brains are hardwired to keep us alive. They have these incredibly intricate alarm systems to warn us of danger, to help us recover from trauma, and to regulate our energy. But when those systems break down and get stuck in an endless loop, well, that is exactly the mechanical framework we're exploring in today's Explainer. We're popping the hood and looking straight at the engine of the human mind.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll break down OCD and the broken relief cycle. Then, PTSD and the broken recovery system. After that, bipolar disorder and the broken energy regulator. And finally, we'll talk about resetting the system.
All right, Section 1, OCD, the broken relief cycle, or what happens when the brain's alarm simply won't stop ringing. To really get this, we first have to debunk a massive myth. OCD is not just some cute quirk about keeping a really neat desk. Actually, scratch that. It's a relentless mechanical malfunction. It always kicks off with an intrusive obsession, like a frightening doubt or a mental image that triggers overwhelming maximum threat anxiety. To survive that intense feeling, the brain basically forces you into a compulsion or a ritual just to turn the alarm off. And hey, it works, bringing this brief, exhausted drop into temporary relief. But here's the catch. The relief never lasts, and the cycle just automatically restarts.
To put that into perspective, this cycle is incredibly intense in reality. A severe fear of contamination might literally drive someone to wash their hands until the skin is painfully raw and cracking. Or, say, a fear of leaving the stove on. That results in checking appliances dozens of times before they can even leave the house. And a lot of times it's completely invisible to us. Someone could be having disturbing, violent thoughts, and their brain forces them to silently count numbers just to stop something terrible from happening.
The absolute core of the malfunction here is logic versus fear. People living with OCD almost always know their fears are totally irrational. They know that checking the exact same lock for the 15th time makes no logical sense whatsoever. But here's the thing. Logic simply cannot silence those fear signals. You can't just tell someone to stop it. The brain is just going to keep sending those high-alert false danger signals until that specific ritual is completed.
So, real OCD is definitely not about being a perfectionist. It's about being trapped inside your own thoughts, desperately searching for relief that never ever lasts. If left untreated, this mechanical loop can literally consume hours of every single day, completely sabotaging school, work, and relationships. It's just a devastating, exhausting cycle of false alarms.
Moving on to Section 2, PSD, the broken recovery system, when the past invades the present. Okay, so normally, if we experience danger, the brain reacts to help us survive, and then it files that terrifying memory safely away in the past. But in PTSD, that vital recovery system breaks down. With an ordinary memory, you know for sure it's in the past. But with PTSD, the brain acts as though the threat is happening right this very second. Just a familiar smell or a loud noise can instantly trigger an urgent, present tense crisis that we call a flashback. And unlike a normal memory, a flashback feels terrifyingly real.
And guys, this isn't just remembering a bad day. The body is actively chemically reacting to an immediate threat. Your heart starts racing, your breathing becomes super rapid, your muscles completely tighten up. For several terrifying moments, the person's body genuinely feels as though it has been physically transported right back to the original trauma. The danger isn't a memory, it is entirely present. We call this constant state of alert hypervigilance. Imagine your brain's radar is physically superglued in the on position, just constantly scanning every environment for danger, even when there's no flashback happening. Unexpected sounds cause massive startle reactions. Crowded places feel totally overwhelming. Because real relaxation is almost impossible, people will actively avoid anything connected to the trauma. But trying to manage this broken system by just avoiding life, that often makes recovery even harder. Living with PTSD can feel like carrying the past into every new day. Just pause and imagine the sheer amount of energy that takes. The traumatic event itself might be long over, but the brain is still prioritizing basic survival over just living daily life. This absolutely drains a person's energy, it creates emotional numbness, and it disconnects them from their loved ones, all because the brain is spending literally all its resources searching for threats. Section 3. Bipolar disorder, the broken energy regulator, characterized by extreme shifts in brain chemistry. We absolutely have to move past the casual way society talks about this one. It's not simply about being emotional or just having a mood swing. It is a severe malfunction of how the brain regulates mood and energy, setting up this incredibly intense duality. The painful internal conflict of bipolar disorder is found in the extreme, completely uncontrollable swings between two mechanical poles, mania and depression.
So during the manic episode, the brain is just flooded with this dramatic, massive rise in energy. A person might need almost zero sleep, yet they feel completely charged up and ready to go. Thoughts race rapidly, speech gets faster, louder, and at first, it can feel brilliant. Confidence shoots right through the roof. But then, the malfunction takes full hold. They might take massive financial risks or chase totally impossible goals. As their concentration shatters, it becomes intensely frustrating, and they can completely lose touch with reality.
But then, the system completely crashes into depression. The energy doesn't just lower a bit, it entirely disappears. Just getting out of bed becomes incredibly difficult. Activities that felt so exciting just days ago now feel entirely meaningless. The simplest daily task like making breakfast requires an enormous, painful amount of effort. And the contrast is just devastating. The person clearly remembers what that limitless high energy felt like just weeks earlier, which makes the crash feel so much heavier. Bottom line here, bipolar disorder is a major medical condition. It involves significant, measurable changes in brain chemistry. These unpredictable swings wreak absolute havoc on relationships, careers, and financial stability. It requires a proper medical diagnosis and ongoing care, not just someone unhelpfully telling them to cheer up or calm down.
All right, Section 4, Resetting the System, Pathways to Recovery and Management.
Now for the incredibly good news. These mechanical loops, they are absolutely not a lost cause. There are very clear pathways to recovery here. For example, PTSD requires tremendous patience and specific professional support to essentially teach the brain that the trauma really is in the past. Bipolar disorder relies on a vital combination of medication to stabilize that chemistry, right alongside therapy. With healthy routines and the right treatment, these broken systems can absolutely be managed, allowing people to take the wheel back and live highly productive, deeply meaningful lives. So I want to leave you with this. How does understanding the pure mechanics of these disorders change how we treat the people living with them? Because when you finally realize that someone isn't just being difficult, but is actually fighting a very real malfunction in their brain's most basic survival systems, it changes everything. It demands that we replace our societal judgment with mechanical empathy. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really challenge you to take this new perspective out into the real world.